Hello, class. Welcome to topic 4 for week 11, the fourth and last topic scheduled for this week. As you'll notice there on the slide that in this topic, I'm going to discuss and relate the chapter 11, some concepts in chapter 11 on preparation and the key to successful presentations, and some of the content in negotiating. And actually, it's another small chapter in the negotiating book. It's about developing your relationship and power. And I see, both of those topics are quite closely related, and I wanted to call your attention to some of those relationships. Mainly, what I see there is kind of in a nutshell, the negotiating book almost talks about the pre-approach method that we talk about in the selling process. Let me go ahead and point that out. So in the selling book in chapter 11, we talked about that your selling presentation is based upon building relationships and maybe even beginning a partnership particularly in the business to business arena. In the chapter 5 of negotiating, the discussion there is about building relationships by getting to know the other side on a personal level before diving into negotiation. So at this point, at least chapter 11 in selling and chapter 5 in negotiating are very close. Really, essentially talking about the same concepts. Also in chapter 11, there's a discussion of the need to personalize the presentation and let customers know that it's all about their organizations. Make it customer centric is the key word there. That the customer and the customer's organization is the center of what we're talking about in the sale. It's not about, if I'm the salesperson, it's not about me. It's not about my product. It's about the customer, and everything is centered on the customer. In the negotiating book this week, the discussion is it's getting to know each other by phone and then negotiating by mail. It was mentioned there that can work even if face-to-face interaction is not possible. I think probably my attention was drawn to that particular paragraph because of so much of what's going on this week in business, in the business world, is that much face-to-face activity in the selling world has more than likely been replaced by phone calls and negotiating, even probably more than ever by email. But in what we might call normal times, that also I think we're seeing a lot of phone negotiating and a lot of email negotiating as well. Finally, a couple of areas where there's really close linkage between the negotiating discussion in the negotiating for success book and the selling book is that both are interested in gathering information, particularly in the selling book. You well know that in the second stage of the selling process, the pre-approach, it's all about preparation and research before the sales call. And so now we're reading in Negotiating for Success is that it's all about asking questions and gathering information, kind of in a sense, instead of calling it a pre-approach sales call it a pre-approach to the negotiating process. That very clearly we can develop power by asking questions and listening. And those are two points that have been made consistently in our discussions this semester as we've talked about selling. Key place is to look for information for what their best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Finding that out in our customers. What is their BATNA? Where are they thinking in relation to their BATNA, or maybe they have more than one BATNA, more than one best alternative to a negotiated agreement. But at the same time, thinking that we ask open-ended questions and are gathering information so that we can find out what is that pain point, what is the need that the customer needs to solve at this particular time how can our product and service best meet that need. We talked yesterday in the tapes in the topic 3 that I recorded yesterday. I talked about a list of quotes from David Ogilvy. There's a picture of Ogilvy again, one of his best-selling books of many years ago called Confessions of an Advertising Man. But it's, and by the way, it's still a well-read book by people in the advertising business today. He's been called the father of advertising, and people are still buying his books and reading what his words had to say back then. I noticed that in the slide that when I was talking about his list of quotes yesterday, when I pushed the pause button, I eliminated this particular quote. It wasn't eliminated from the slide, but it was eliminated from my discussion. So I wanted to go back and pick that up, and because I think it is relevant to what the rest of our discussion today will be. This particular quote is, he said that I don't know the rules of grammar. If you're trying to persuade people to do something or buy something, it seems to me you should use their language. And because that word language there might get a little sticky in terms of, exactly what is he talking about there. He's not talking about their, different native languages. He's not talking about English and French and Spanish and German and any other language. He's really talking about the language of their, that they use in their individual businesses and in their industries. So I've put a slide up here to kind of clarify that for us for our discussions, and maybe instead of using the word language, possibly using something like the word official terminology is probably a little bit more accurate. Official terminology is specialized words or phrases or manners of speaking that are associated with a particular area of activity. And you know this, you have some experience in this in your jobs, that your job, if you're in the insurance business or in the banking business or in retail, and I know some of you those are some areas that some of you in the class are in, but you will have some specialized words, some official terminology that you use in your jobs. So different trades and professions, academic fields, and various sports we know are known for their official terminology. Some of it is very specific. The way words are used or the manner in which they are used is specific to some trades, and sometimes the way the word is used by people not in that trade or not in that profession. It can be kind of confusing to the person. They don't know the sense of the word that the people in the trade know. So sometimes people that are in the trade and people that are not in the trade will have different meanings for one word. What one person calls official terminology, another might call it jargon. I think official terminology is just a little bit better. Sometimes jargon sounds like slang, and slang words are not always as precise as what I think official terminology is. So when we get into the list here, and I think we've looked at this before about how to prepare for a sales presentation, identifying your ally and the prospect company and get additional details about the company. That might be one place where you can find out what maybe some of the official terminology is within a particular company. But I think even more so, that second point, research briefly on everyone who will be attending the presentation. So you're ready to make a sales presentation. There might be some people there. If you're in a business-to-business selling environment, your company's product is being sold to another company. Who's going to be there? Who's going to be at the presentation? There might be, so if it's a software product that I'll be talking about here in a minute, there would be the people who are using the software, people whose desktop workstations will be running that software. So they will be there. They will have their own questions. They will have their own words and terminology for what they do in their jobs. If you have somebody there from IT, if people from information and technology, they'll be more technical. They'll use the more techie terms, and they will ask you the more technical questions. So that's why you would want to research on who's going to be there, so that you can be prepared to understand the terminology of the people who are there, so that you can make sure your homework, and you're well aware of now that there is a lot of homework to do for this sales presentation. That prepare, prepare, prepare was one of the mantras that was used in the textbook. Here at the bottom of this slide, you can see it's rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. After you've got everything figured out and you know what you want to say, rehearse it more than once. Planning the seating arrangement strategically, as far as you may or may not have the ability to do that, since the sales presentation, the way I'm thinking of it, is likely to be certainly in the customer's place of business. It'll be up to the customer to plan that. But in any case, what you can do, you may be able to pick your location. It'll probably be at the front of the room, or you may want to take a seat if it's at a large table and there are 7 or 8 or 10 people there. Maybe you'll have a chance to strategically locate yourself, and then you will need to decide how you want to do that. You may want to be one way to do that would be to place yourself across the table, directly across from the person who you think is the main decision maker in this process. So anyway, whether or not you can plan the seating arrangement, it is a consideration. It is something to keep in mind if you have a chance to pick your seat. By now you might have enough about the company, enough about the room where this meeting is going to take place, and seating might be something that you have some input into. Walk through your mental rehearsals. And one comment I have about rehearsing is certainly, I believe that you do need to rehearse. You do need mental rehearsals. At the same time, don't over rehearse to the point to where you can't answer a question outside of that. Your rehearsal or your presentation may not go exactly as planned, because you may have built really good rapport with this group, and certainly you'll have rapport hopefully with this at least this person over here. That first point, identify your ally in the prospect company and get additional details about the company. There was some reason why you're in front of this company's buying committee. There's some reason why you're there. It might have been a referral. If that was the case, somebody else who was a friend of maybe the person who's making the key decision in this sale, maybe they were referred you, and that person then and if they're that person at your meeting would be your ally. So you will have people there who are your allies, and so that will give you some sense of confidence that you're among friends in a sense. If you've made good inroads in terms of the rapport, you've had that lead up to the first few minutes in the approach. In the first few minutes of the sales call, you've been able to do some storytelling. You've been able to talk, introduce yourself to each of the people, kind of find out a little bit, what they're doing in the business, and what their particular jobs are. Just in short visits with each one as you walk around the room, shaking hands with them. If you've really built up rapport, they may feel more comfortable to start raising their hand and asking questions before you're all finished. So it's not a bad thing to have had that level of rapport built up, but it may kind of throw you off track if you're not ready for that. So be ready for that. So do mental rehearsal, but also be ready to answer spontaneous questions that may come up. Use the names of everyone present, and that's another reason why it's important to do a little bit of research or background on the people who will be attending the presentation, so that you'll at least be able to, know who they are and be able to know the area of the business that they represent. You'll have remembered associate the name with a person from IT, associate a name with a person from the purchasing department, associate a name with a person from finance. So if what you're selling involves, it's a big ticket item, it may require a good input from certainly a hearty okay from the person in finance who says, or the treasurer, who watches over the company's funds, who says, this product is expensive, but we have the funds to purchase that. So try to keep the names and positions, the role that each individual plays in the company. And then we've mentioned this before, is given the presentation a personal touch. You want them to know you as a person. That will go a long way to not only help you hopefully ultimately close a sale, but also to follow up business in the future and with this company, and referrals to other companies. If you have the personal touch, you're more likely to get referrals from this company to other companies, to other people that they know that might be able to use your product. Do a lot of listening, listen. Take a customer-centric approach. All the time be concerned more about the company than you are about your product or your particular business. Well, here's an example. I wanted to hopefully use this. Hopefully we can tie a number of these points together, and I'm calling it a sales presentation example. I'll probably be using, we might talk a little bit about pre-approach. The value of pre-approach, approach, and presentation will certainly be the key components in the selling process that are involved in this sales presentation example. Even though sales presentation is step 4, we know the importance of the steps that come before that. So we're talking about a prospective customer. It's a dental office that's possibly interested in buying new software for the office. The salesperson is you. You represent a company that sells software to dental offices, and there are two kinds of software that your company sells. One type is kind of to run the business side of the office that the dentist would use to keep track of appointments, to keep track, follow up on payments, follow up on dental insurance, kind of just keep what in the past were if you can kind of picture, maybe at some point you've been in your dentist or doctor's offices where you've seen this vast shelving unit. I've seen it oftentimes in my dentist's office that they're now moving away from this. But it was a shelving unit that had, it looked like thousands of file folders on it. And, I've often wondered, I often want to say, well, do you still need all those? But they keep those. And I think recently they've been doing all their new business using the software products and electronic storage. But that would be one type of software that you're the salesperson. That's one type of software that you sell to manage the business side of the dental office. The other kind of software is the kind of software that the dentist's equipment is interfaced with, mainly dental imaging equipment. And most of that would be they're taking, periodically they're taking X-rays, and they keep copies of those. And then they take those every year. They do a comparison when you go to your dentist this year or in this 6-month visit for a dental hygienist appointment. If they end up taking your X-rays, they will compare them to past years to see how's the health of what's its current status of the health of your teeth. So anyway, this practice I want to talk about is I might say this example is a little bit fact and a little bit fiction. I was thinking about the dentist that I've gone to for a number of years, right here in Tempe, up near kind of on Southern Avenue, near let's see, off of McClintock a little bit up there. A dentist has been up there about 20 years or so, and it's a smaller office. So I thought this might be a good example because I can kind of picture this as I'm trying to explain it to you. I'll call the dentist Dr. A. She's owned the practice for more than 20 years. In that office, there are two dental hygienists. I think they might have the ability to work full or part-time, and I'm not exactly sure at the current time, how they've chosen to do that. But anyway, there are two different dental hygienists in that office. There's also a dental assistant that is used to when you're having some more complex work done by the dentist. The person in there is the dental assistant who helps, hands the instrument to the dentist, knows all the ins and outs of doing when they get into kind of the things that are related to like dental surgery. They can handle issues that are related to that. There's also one person there who's an office manager. I'd call an office manager / receptionist. That front office person, when you call, when you need to make an appointment, when you need to check an appointment, when you need to have a question about billing, all those kinds of issues, all those business things. There's one person that does that. And then as I think I learned, they have a part-time bookkeeper. I'm not sure if they're on at the office that I go to. I don't know if that person is on the payroll of the dentist's office or just a person that they use part-time, and a person who has their own bookkeeping practice. But in any case, these are the key people that are involved in the dentist hypothetical dentist office that I go to. And by the way, there's going to be and this is kind of the case in reality, that there's a new dentist that's fresh out of dental school. I'm going to call this person Dr. B, who will be joining the practice next month. So what I wanted to do is kind of give you the actors in the play here, so to speak, in the example, and start thinking about. So you're the hypothetical salesperson, and so me and the rest of the class, by the way, we are going to be advising you. We're giving you advice. So I'll be saying, we think you ought to do this. You think you ought to try that. It's going to be me and the rest of the class that you're familiar with, the class that you're people that are sitting in class with you right now. So when we go back to some things like research briefly on everyone who will be attending the presentation, you'll want to know is certainly, well, who's going to be there, and it will make a difference in terms of how you are. How you would prepare for that. The more people that are there, the more maybe questions or discussion that will happen. That might, in a sense, the more people that are there, if you're talking about, let's talk about a 1 hour sales presentation, maybe a 1 hour with some follow-on questions, let's say. But the more people that are there, the more you'll have to move through the presentation because there could be more questions. And you want to make sure you get through everything in your plan that you want to make sure you get your plan, that personal touch to your plan. You want to make sure you've given that before the 1 hour is up. So first, research briefly on everyone who will be attending the presentation, and also the number who will be there, so that you can pace yourself in terms of the time you spend. So let's assume the Dr. A will be there, and Dr. A owns a practice, so I think Dr. A will probably be writing the check if you eventually make the sale. Dr. A will be the one who will write the check to buy your software. Will the one or two of the dental hygienists be there? So we kind of want to know that. Will the dental assistant be there? the office manager, who will be there, because different people will have different questions. And will the part-time bookkeeper be there? Well, that's also an interesting question. And I have one other one that I think we might consider. And let's just say for reasons of here's a person that we know doesn't work for Dr. A's practice, but it's somebody who Dr. A might want there, since we're talking about a technical product that's outside of Dr. A's area of expertise. We're talking about software. I'm thinking of the IT person that Dr. A uses. She might want the IT person to be there to ask questions, and to be able to explain things even about how the software is working, the current software is working, or how it's not working. So there could be a sizable group of people there, and maybe if it's through your research and contacts with the office of your follow-ups to set up this sales presentation appointment, it might be that you might suggest that maybe another 15 minutes or so be added onto the sales presentation, so that you can make sure that their questions are answered. And of course, you want to make sure that you've covered all the key points that are part of your plan. So it might be, think of something like this, and think of it in terms of the language. Back to Ogilvy's comments about language. Let me get his word for it. David Ogilvy said, and I quote, he said, it's got to be in here somewhere. Okay, I don't know the rules of grammar. If you're trying to persuade people to do something or buy something, it seems to me you should use their language. And like we've already said, is that we're not going to use the word language. We're going to talk about the appropriate terminology. But so looking at it right here, let's assume that the software, all the software that's used in the dental office has been in there for a long time. And let's also say that the Dr. A, the owner of the practice, is pretty sure that she's ready to replace the hardware, put in new hardware in the new computer hardware, because over the years they've added new imaging equipment and other types of equipment that might be overtaxing the memory of these of the older computers that are in the office. So Dr. A is open to the possibility of replacing that older hardware with newer hardware, and that, of course, that will certainly make it possible for hopefully for the newer software to run as it was designed. But going back to David Ogilvy's comment about the right terminology, we now see that what you should be familiar with, and when you're using the terminology, especially for the dental imaging equipment hardware, or excuse me, the dental imaging equipment software, there will be technical terminology that the dentist will ask, that Dr. A will ask. There will be technical questions that the hygienist will ask, because they don't use the business software, they're using the dental imaging software. The dental assistant will have interest in software, or if there is an interest in the software, it'll be from the standpoint of again the type that's related to the dental imaging equipment, not to the business side of it. Now, when we get to the office manager, receptionist, and the bookkeeper, they'll be interested in what this does for the business side of the practice, keeping appointments, managing the money, managing dental insurance, those kinds of things, managing the callbacks that many of the reminder systems that many of the dentists use now, in terms of automatically giving you a call, reminding you that your appointment is coming up, next week, that kind of a reminder system. And then the IT person that's there will be, they'll have questions about, and they may even have questions for Dr. A. Well, the IT person will say, well, Dr. A, if you're ready to replace the hardware, we know that's a discussion we need to have, and we need to see what kind of hardware is best for this set of software. That could be a whole different kind of discussion. So that meeting could get sales meeting could get very complex before it's all over. The new dentist. The reason I wanted to make sure I mentioned that one is that with the new dentist, and I mentioned they're fresh out of dental school, joining the practice next month. It might be, is the new dentist going to be there at the meeting? And let's say the new dentist does come, and what I was thinking of is that a new dentist fresh out of dental school might have interest in, having seen some of the latest things that go on in dental offices, and may be interested in having questions for you, the salesperson, about what your software can do, what it can't do. So it could be a very interesting meeting. So that is kind of one way. Here, I wanted to use this example to tie together some points to talk about research on everyone who will be attending the presentation, anticipating the kinds of questions that they may have, walking through doing your rehearsals, thinking of those, maybe rehearsing separate answers. Maybe what I'm thinking of, maybe not rehearsal of a presentation. That's the part where you might get hung up on going from one part of the rehearsal to another, one part of the presentation to another, if you've rehearsed the whole thing from start to finish. What I'm suggesting here is that you rehearse sets of answers. Rehearse one set of answers that addresses the dental imaging equipment and the software that is associated with that. And then another set of questions and answers that might be that you could rehearse would have to do with the business side of the house, the business side of the office, and you would anticipate that the office manager and the part-time bookkeeper would have most of those questions. And then because there's a possibility that the IT person that the dentist's office uses might be there to answer questions, in a sense to be an advisor to Dr. A in helping her, pick the right software, because she's also thinking about getting some new hardware, computer hardware as well. So thinking of those technical questions that relate to hardware that only an IT person would know about and would be interested in and would most likely ask questions about. So that's kind of a little example there that I thought we might use to pull together those different concepts on how to prepare for a sales presentation. So I think with that we can end that topic, and this ends. This is the fourth and final topic that we'll be looking at this week. So long for now.